Welcome to the Amazing Truth Podcast, a podcast where we focus on real issues and have real talk, and as always, provide a biblical perspective. We hope that you will be blessed as you listen.
Welcome to Amazing Truth Podcast. This is the Amazing Truth Minute.
This is the Amazing Truth Podcast. The Amazing Truth Podcast. Listen to us on Spotify, Apple Podcast, Google Podcast, and Stitcher. Like us on Facebook at the Amazing Truth Podcast. The Amazing Truth Podcast. Real issues, real talk.
Today's Truth Minute comes from the book of James, chapter 1, verses 2 to 5, and it says, My brethren, count it all joy when you fall into various trials, knowing that the testing of your faith produces patience. But let patience have its perfect work, that you may be perfected and complete, lacking nothing. In our last Truth Minute, I like the quote that our guest said. He said that your excuse may seem valid at the moment, but in the long run, self-destruction behavior will invalidate your excuses. I don't know what you're going through. You may be struck, but remember that you are not destroyed. You may be hard-pressed, but you are not crushed. You may be perplexed, but do not despair in it. Persecuted, but not forsaken. In Christ, your hope never fails, and your storm will not last forever. That is the Amazing Truth Minute.
The Amazing Truth Podcast. Real issues, real talk.
Welcome back to the Amazing Truth Podcast. This is episode 8 of season 2. And in this 4-part series, we're going to be focusing on chemical dependency, substance abuse, if you want to call it, in relation to mental health. And as from last week, part 1 of this episode, we are talking to a brother of ours, and let him introduce himself. We focused on his introduction. We got to know him, and we dived deep into chemical dependency, and we talked about his identity crisis and how that affected his growth as a young man coming from Africa, and his life into high school, and how he celebrated his 21st birthday in the acceptable, quote unquote, acceptable American way, by having a drink, which
This guy actually celebrated his birthday twice,
man.
His 21 birthday twice.
So we don't want to give you a lot. So please listen to part 1 of this series, where you can find it everywhere, Spotify, or wherever you get your podcast.
Yes.
But without further ado, let's have him introduce himself again. Just tell us your names, and then we can dive into the conversation.
All right. My name is Isaiah Ongombe. I go by Isaiah Gesembe. But everybody, including everybody, calls me Izo.
Izo, all right.
Isaac. Everybody calls me that. There's a very small percentage of people who call me Isaiah, probably myself. I think it's just me.
We've kept up the tradition. Everybody who comes here has a AKA. AKA Izo. All right. So here in Fort, it will be known as Izo.
Yeah.
So I know we talked a lot about your journey so far with chemical dependency and how that has affected you as a person, and then you're seated right here as a success story, and we'll get into that about how you came up, and but we have to go into the hole so that there's someone who's in that hole as well.
Right,
so
now,
we want you to reach out to him even in that hole, but then you here as a success story to show that there is light at the end of the tunnel.
Yes.
And you are a story to tell. Yeah. So I'll just jump right into it.
Just jump right into it.
What was your drugs of choice?
My drug of choice was, the first one obviously was alcohol.
Okay.
And then after that is I dabbed into weed or marijuana, whatever you call it. I did that. They kind of went together. I've never really talked about my marijuana use. Actually, this is the first city.
This is a place of fast.
Yes.
Yes.
For the most part. So
Yeah,
And we
it's,
applaud you
honored.
for that. It's very brave.
Yeah. And with that one,
Mhm.
it's because I had a justification for it,
Mhm.
that I only did it with when I was meditating,
Mhm.
or when I was just kind of wanting to be alone.
Mhm.
Even though sometimes I did it socially, but most of the time that I smoked weed was by myself.
How did you get introduced to weed?
First time, oh man, going back again, it was high school.
High school.
So those house parties?
Everybody smoked weed. Those house
You mean
parties.
everybody
Not
smoked
everybody.
weed?
And right. And to you,
My clique,
Your
my
clique.
whole clique.
and to
smoked
you,
weed.
that was okay then. If
Yeah.
that was one of your excuses. Well, everybody smokes weed, right? So
Yeah,
that,
I
that
mean,
was one way to make it easy for you. to use it.
It was one. Yeah, it was
Yeah.
one way of fitting in.
Yeah.
Okay.
You know, there's this whole thing, and there's this whole pressure that young people, even us as adults,
Mhm.
that we feel like we have to fit in. But there's nowhere in the
Mhm.
Bible where we are asked to fit in.
Yeah.
Not even in Christianity.
Yes.
You are not asked to fit in. It's you
Be
let
yourself.
Stand out.
Yes, and you let Jesus come into you
Yeah.
Mhm.
and mold you the way that
Mhm.
they want you. There's nowhere, this whole thing about fitting in that I want to tell younger people, and something that I'm going to keep repeating to my son as he grows up, is that there is nowhere we are asked to fit in. The person who created us didn't even ask us to fit in into his church.
Wow.
I think this guy's gonna convert us when the time is done.
Wow.
This is mind blowing.
Yeah.
You wanted to fit in, you get into alcohol. You want to fit in, you start smoking weed. It's all introduced to you when you're in high school,
Yeah.
and all you want is to fit in.
Yeah.
But also, there is also the need for identity, finding out yourself.
Yes.
And because that is lacking, you want to fit in.
Mm-hmm.
So, did you fit in?
At that time, you fit in because whoever you were with
Mhm.
was doing it,
Mhm.
and then you did it. You were all on the same level, and you have to realize that anything that takes you away from your normal way of thinking, your normal way of reasoning, when all of you guys are in that, it's like a frequency.
Mhm.
It's like a frequency mode. It tunes you into a certain level that all of you are able to
Relate.
relate.
Kenan,
And then-
I don't
and
know why
then-
you're not laughing, because this guy, how he's explaining it.
But there's one.
It's like
there's
a radio
one,
station, right?
Yeah,
You're on a
and-
different frequency.
yeah.
And
They-
I'm just listening to you as
Mhm.
I'm
Yeah.
listening to you and I'm saying that if I'm that kid in high school and you're
Yeah.
explaining this to me, I have
Mhm.
no reason not to use.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Because it sounds good. It sounds like
Yeah.
I'm gonna
Right.
be accepted.
Yeah.
Maybe
Yeah.
maybe I'm the weird kid in the block.
Mhm.
Maybe I'm the the what do they call this man? The geek.
Yeah.
The
Yeah.
geek.
Mhm.
And I want to be accepted.
Mhm.
The way you're explaining it, Kenan, actually
it's-
agrees. Like
yeah.
even you, I'm like, man, I want to be part of this.
Maybe that's
Yeah.
what maybe
maybe that's what you got
in
to-
my
Because-
head as a
yeah.
young boy. I'm
Mhm.
thinking that man, that's acceptable.
Because honestly, that's how it feels.
Right.
And we always underrate the whole thing. Perception is reality.
Okay.
Wherever you see,
Mhm.
that's in your head. That's how you see the world. That is how you understand the world from what you are seeing. Because images are formed in the brain.
Yeah.
They're not formed in the eye. So imagine you're thinking that this is normal. The first thing that it does to you as a young person, it tells you that whatever happens at home is abnormal.
It's abnormal. Wow.
Man, Aizo, you're speaking like you're trapped in a young man's body, but you're full of wisdom,
Yeah.
right? Like
Yeah.
you're breaking this, but again,
thank
it's experience.
Yeah,
Like,
It's experience.
you put me and Kenan here talk about that. Well, we'll give you theory.
Yeah.
I'm surprised, Kenan, you've not Googled so far.
I don't Google my stuff.
You did endometriosis.
that I had to Google.
What you did, right?
Yeah.
So now let's come back. Last time episode you talked about you had gone to you got a DUI, you went to jail, and then you came out in 6 months. You did not touch alcohol.
Right.
Mhm.
So after 6 months, because clearly for 6 months you are, last time you were applauding yourself for 6 months.
Yeah,
But then what happened? Because it sounded like you went back.
you'll be shocked.
Okay, let me and shock me.
After 6 months,
Yeah.
we graduated from our LPN program.
Okay.
We're sitting there. We actually went to. The funny thing is, these small towns, the bars are also the restaurants.
So you went to the restaurant. Mm-hmm.
So we were there. I ate.
Uh-huh.
I promise you, I ate. I had no plan of drinking. It wasn't in my plan. And then, and so all of a sudden, my classmates and everybody starts to have a drink.
Mm-hmm.
And then I was like, you know what? I haven't done anything wrong for 6 months. I went back. I actually came out of jail that Sunday morning and studied all night. And on Monday, I did a test and I passed. I studied. The only thing that would show that I was still on track is for me to keep doing good in school.
Yeah.
Remember, keep that in mind.
Yeah.
So I kept doing good in school. I was like, you know what? According to everybody else, I've done good. So what would having a drink hurt at this moment?
We celebrate.
The other people who didn't drink and who drank, we are all in the same boat now that we graduated. Why not drink?
Yeah.
I had one led to another. And the thing about addiction is it's never erased from your mind. You always pick up where you left off.
Yeah.
You will always pick up where you left off. And that same night, I had my favorite kind of drink.
The cheap one or the other one?
The other one. I had, by the time the night was done, I think I had 2 bottles of it. Yeah.
Wow.
So when did you end up getting the second DUI?
So after that,
so how long?
we continued. I continued now. After that, I obviously went back to my daily drinking.
Yeah.
Finished my RN and came back, got a job. I want you guys to follow this. Got a promotion within the first 3 months of coming from a graduation. Even everybody at work was complaining. And then got another promotion 1 year later. And then within, I think it was less than 24 months, there was a time that I was the acting director at work. And we were able to get a deficiency-free survey.
Yeah.
And I was the one at the helm. And then here's the funny thing about it. And this is why I want to tell people something, that God never lets you. And he's always with you, even when you feel like that he's not with you. It's because you're not in the same frequency. I want to talk to the older and the younger people that at that time, the loneliness that drives us to drink, or the trauma, because, you got to remember there's some people who turn to drinking and drugs because they were either sexually abused. There are so many roads that lead to this river.
Yeah.
There are so many tributaries that come to this river of substance abuse. And the one common denominator is loneliness. When you're lost, identity crisis, you feel lonely because this other world will not understand that you don't want to be a part of it, and this other world does not understand that you're pretending to be a part of it.
Yeah.
In the middle of it, you're lonely. And God was always with me, because at the height of my addiction, I was also at the height breaking barriers at work. A young African kid going from busting tables at that. I used to bust tables at that place to director, and to their first ever and their only ever deficiency-free survey.
Wow.
And you have to realize, like, that was at the time that I was drinking. Now, at that time, I was drinking about 1 liter of hard liquor a day and a few beers. When this is happening.
Wow. You're thriving, yet you have an addiction.
But I have a serious monster that I'm living with. That even I came to find out later that my workmates and my other bosses, even from corporate, knew, like, there was a young boy there who was really, really good, but he has a liquor problem.
They knew it.
They knew it. But
So,
but God's plan prevailed.
Yeah.
In the way that he wanted to because God does things to exalt and to show His glory, and Satan's plan was also running concurrently. It just got to a point where that, you know what, God said that, okay, we both cannot coexist in the house. Now you have to make a choice.
Okay.
And
So, so now you're thriving in your career. You're thriving in all these. Everything is going well. I want us to build, because we want to come to talking about where you are. And all that stuff. So how did you? What was the climax of that? And now what makes you say enough of these? That starts the other journey that you're currently currently in.
so at the climax of that is leading up to the climax, I get my second DUI. So I'm the only manager at work going from the workhouse to work. If you ever been to a workhouse, that's jail. They just call it a workhouse. They shouldn't call it a workhouse. It's jail.
Glorified jail.
It's glorified jail. You just happen to, they give you your clothes from yesterday. And if you don't bring extra clothes, you wear the same clothes to
work every day.
So at this point, you're at the workhouse.
So I was at the workhouse for a little bit, and until I got on house arrest.
Okay.
So my second DUI led to house arrest.
But you're at the workhouse. Why were you at the workhouse at that time?
So because you're supposed to be on house arrest, and if you don't have everything all together, for you are sentenced to go to the workhouse.
Okay.
But if you have all your systems together to do house arrest, you just do house arrest. You go from
home to
work
and back home.
So I ended up getting getting my second DUI. I had excuse me. I had gotten at that time, that was my second DUI. I had a few probation violations. So there were some days some weekends that I spent in jail that nobody knew about. Because I was either caught drinking or tested positive for alcohol when I wasn't supposed to be drinking.
This is from your first DUI. All this is
this is now from my second DUI.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
So and these things are happening when everything else around me is thriving, by the way.
So you're looking good on the outside.
Yes.
But you're battling with some demon that only you, I don't want to call it a demon because someone else, that's their lifestyle.
It is.
But you're battling with to you,
yes,
what is a struggle at that very moment, right?
Yeah. And
so
then,
you end up in house arrest.
yes.
Okay. And how long, if you don't mind?
So I did house arrest. House arrest is always just for 1 month.
Okay.
You do house arrest for 1 month, and then you're free.
Okay.
And then you're free to move around as you want, and do whatever you need to do. But I honestly do believe that it's some darkness that is sent. At this time, I'm depressed.
Yeah.
Because everything else is going good, but I'm not happy. This is the time that I dropped out of church. That a lot of people could tell you that they didn't see me. This is the time that you guys didn't see me. I was still living just 5 minutes away from where I'm living now.
Right.
You got me
But
to
you
come
just
to Ramsey,
disappeared.
but you couldn't get me to come to church at that time, because I feel like everywhere I'm looking, you feel like people are judging you.
Yeah.
You feel like people are judging you, and I came to find out later that some of the people did not even know what I was going through. Actually, 90% of the people did not know what I was going through.
So you created this image, this
Yes.
perception in your life that everybody knows. Everybody sees you, and because of that, now your lifestyle is getting even more complicated.
Yes.
Because you're isolating from people.
I was totally isolated because I had this reality in my head, and that's how the devil takes you for himself.
Yeah.
He isolates you by telling you, man, this whole world here, Ezra hates you. Kenan will never even help you if you were in a problem. And I've never had I've never asked him a question.
Yeah.
You've never even talked to them.
I've never even talked to him, and that's how a lot of people are. That's how depression thrives. So now when you find yourself in that, then you find yourself, hey, I just got paid though, so I can just quick run, get my fix, and then come back to the house and continue the party by myself or with other people.
Right. So, and when you talk about isolation now, so alcohol, does it, or that substance, that lifestyle, if you're not with the friends that you're socializing with and using, I'll call it using.
Yes, using. Yes,
When
let's
using.
use that. Yes, that's what it is.
And then, so when you're not with them,
Yeah,
other people who are not using are not
they're enemies.
they're enemies. You can't really relate to them.
They're enemies.
So then, if you're not with your using partners, you're either isolated in your home,
Yes.
and then double it up with depression
Mhm.
and mental health and all that stuff. It's darkness.
Yeah.
Totally.
Depression thrives in darkness.
Right.
And literally that you'll find a lot of people who are going through or who went through what I went through is you are home. Excuse me. You are home, but you even have your lights off. It's you even physically like to sit in a dark place or an environment that is not stimulating unless you're using, unless you're smoking weed, unless you're doing your drugs, unless you're drinking. Then you're withdrawn because that's how depression thrives. It thrives in that, and in that moment, positivity becomes the hardest thing to find. By yourself. By yourself becomes the hardest thing to find because now if you're in that situation because somebody violated you in a way, because you got to remember there are a lot of ladies who got into this because
They were abused.
Some past
They were
trauma.
abused.
Yeah.
Yes.
Past trauma.
that at that time the only things and the people they can see are their perpetrators.
Right.
And then at that time I'm seeing, the only thing I'm seeing and I'm feeling is the grief that I never dealt with. The only thing that I'm seeing is the people who hate me. The only thing that I'm experiencing is all this just negative energy. And then you're stuck.
You're stuck. So
You're like
you-
stuck.
You know, Izo, sometimes we don't know Kenan.
yeah.
Sometimes we don't know what people are going through.
No.
You know, I see him. Bro, man, we were, you know, like we could meet, but
Yes.
nobody, like you're saying, I didn't
Yes.
know. Like we
Yes.
don't know what people are going through. And then
Mhm.
there's someone right now who's going through that, who's listening to this podcast, who feels like everybody else knows what they're going through. And who feels like, you know, they are, and everyone is an enemy except for people who they're doing certain things with. And if you think about them, maybe they're destructive. I just want to let you know that, man, this young man here has made it. And that doesn't mean that you always stay there because it's a journey.
It's a
you know,
journey,
life
yeah.
is a journey.
Right.
But if Izo did it, man, you got it. You know, you who's listening, you are able to come out of whatever you're going through right now. You just have to I don't know what it is, but we'll talk about resources, Kenan.
Yep.
We'll talk about the way forward out of this. But I want us to pause here and take a break, Kenan.
Yeah.
I think at this point, I want to pause. We take a break, then we come back so that we can pick up, because we have not hit rock bottom yet,
No.
where he only has a trash bag. You know, then we take that part and then we start talking about resources as we wind up.
This is the Amazing Truth Podcast. The Amazing Truth Podcast. Listen to us on Spotify, Apple Podcast, Google Podcast, and Stitcher. Like us on Facebook at the Amazing Truth Podcast. The Amazing Truth Podcast. Real issues, real talk.
Ezra, as we are on this little interlude, I want to say that this episode is again sponsored by Sea Mile Transportation Inc., a transportation company based in Brooklyn Park. Ezra, we have a project that's running.
And my friend,
Tell me more about that.
listen, if you have not gone to our website yet, you are missing it. You're missing it. You're missing it. Go to amazingtruthpodcast.org. You're going to find a link there that will direct you to a place where you can write your story.
Yeah.
And the title of the project is what, Kenan?
Stories of Hope Memoir.
Stories of Hope Memoir. And the essence of these is, as we listen to these inspiring stories, you might not have a chance to come and sit at this table.
Yeah.
But your story is one that can inspire and encourage someone. It can be a resource to someone. So when you go to the link, you submit, you click on the, what was that page?
The Google Forms.
The Google Forms,
Google
right?
Forms page. And there's 3 categories, very short categories, 3 paragraphs essentially.
Yes.
The first one is an introduction about yourself.
Mm-hmm.
Just if you want to remain anonymous, feel free to do so. We'll fulfill your wishes.
Respect that.
We'll respect that. And then the second paragraph is where you tell us your story. Just a few lines about your story, your journey, and how painful it was, how joyful it was, whatever it is. Now, the third paragraph is where we focus on the hope.
Yep.
You know, we know it's your story, but we want you to encourage someone else who might be going through that or will be going through that.
Mm-hmm.
Give them some words of encouragement in a few lines, and then submit that to us, and we'll compile this book probably by the end of season 2.
Yep.
We'll come up with this, and then it'll be disseminated socially. We'll know so someone can get encouraged
Exactly.
by these stories.
Someone who's going through their own journey, they can click on this book and they can read your story and they can be inspired, they can be encouraged. And I want to tell people, Kenan, that
Yes.
everything that comes out of this project goes towards building a resource
Mhm.
that is going to help people who are going through those problems.
Exactly.
We can just talk about issues
Mhm.
without being part of the solution.
Yep.
And so please, if you want to be part of this story, it's not only about writing, but you can also pray for the people
Yeah.
and the stories you're hearing.
Yeah.
You can also in the future maybe donate towards a cause where we can be able to share and help someone who's dealing with their current crisis. So please, amazingtruthpodcast.org.
I want to do a follow-up
Yes.
plug here. So to those people who have subscribed to any of our YouTube channels, Spotify, wherever you get your podcast, I want to encourage you to get 5 more people
Yes.
to subscribe
Yes.
and to do a
Like.
review, a like or whatever.
Yeah.
5 people. I know we have about not so many, about 65, 67 people on YouTube. So those 67 people, find 5 more people
Mhm.
who can share this amazing journey with us
Mhm.
and subscribe to that, and follow us and listen to us and give us your feedback as much as you listen.
Awesome.
This is the Amazing Truth Podcast. The Amazing Truth Podcast. Listen to us on Spotify, Apple Podcast, Google Podcast, and Stitcher. Like us on Facebook at the Amazing Truth Podcast. The Amazing Truth Podcast. Real issues, real talk.
Welcome back from our break. I hope that you are still with us. You didn't go for the break and then went one way.
Yeah.
So we're glad
Grab
you're
that
back.
hot chocolate.
Yes.
Now it's cold. Grab that hot
It
chocolate.
depends where you are.
It
Some
depends
places
on
it's warm.
where we are.
So
it's-
wherever you are, grab a drink of your choice
Yes,
that will reinforce you positively.
exactly. And then just listen to us, and we always thank you for your support. Now,
Yeah.
let's get back to this. I had a question that I had to carry forward.
Yeah.
During this 6 months that your sobriety,
yeah.
right? Did you replace your drinking with something positive at that point, or was it school? I know you mentioned school, but is
Yeah.
there anything else that you filled that void with?
Yes, I actually spent more time with I was in a relationship at that time, and when you are dealing with substance abuse, your relationships with people close to you, they suffer immediately.
Yeah.
Because you find that they're a hindrance to whatever you want to do.
Mm-hmm.
So I obviously worked on my relationship. I was a good brother. I was a good family member. I was a good boyfriend mostly, and
I like this fact you said mostly.
I was a good
Mostly.
because
Yeah.
I had to get it right. You
Yeah,
had to
so
get it right
that-
perfectly.
yeah.
And also I started. I think my relationship with God got better at that time.
Okay.
I went, even though we were in the middle of nowhere, I actually started going to church in the middle of nowhere.
Izo describes this place every time he talks in the middle of nowhere.
Yeah, I've been there. It is no,
It's in the middle of nowhere.
It's the middle of nowhere. And I've been to that church you're talking about.
Oh
Way back. Our
It was a
brother,
good church. Everybody knows everybody.
Our late brother Brian used to go to that spot. Yes.
I think I've been there. I think I was sharing a story there. When he shared his mission trip experience there and there.
So it is indeed the middle of nowhere. So and then now you're rock bottom. Now your mental health is affecting you. You are thriving at work, but yet you have a monster, which is some sort of, you have a liquor problem.
Yes.
So then, are you diagnosed at this point with chemical dependency or substance use disorder or any mental health diagnosis?
So usually you get diagnosed when, you have to go see somebody every time you get arrested. You have to go see somebody if you get a DUI or whatnot. We did it, and the funny part is I was able to convince them that I actually started drinking again the night before I got my DUI. And I haven't drunk since then.
This was during your Rule 25 assessment or some... Wow.
Yes.
Izo is constantly convincing these people.
Yeah.
The police.
But is he convincing himself?
That's the thing.
That's the thing.
So I remember this second time, actually, that guy, he didn't even... The first time, she wrote a very good report. And actually said, our patient, we did like 3-4 sessions. She's like, you're fine. You are just a victim of your circumstances from that night. And went on and on how
good
I'm not likely to repeat it again. And I remember the second time I went, the assessor or the counselor was like, there's something is not connecting. There's a part of the truth that you're omitting, but you're omitting it in such a way that I can't even pin you down to it. He said that at some point you will pin yourself down. Wow. But right now, I don't have anything that I can pin you down for you to go to, even to go to rehab or anything. Because you haven't checked off all the boxes for inpatient treatment.
Wow.
It helps when you have a thriving career and you have a family that mostly doesn't drink, especially when your elders in the family don't drink, and whoever you're hanging around with doesn't drink. Then you really look like the only bad apple, which can be dealt with.
Yeah.
So So I only did like 2 days session, and that was it.
Okay. So you, your previous podcast, you mentioned that you hit rock bottom. How did you hit there now? Take us to that journey.
So fast forward after that, eventually the chips start falling. The lies, and not even only the lies, is that any abnormal lifestyle doesn't last. So I started, when you struggle with substance abuse, the things you lose are things you can never replace. So you lose them slowly, the relationships, the people. And I got to a point where I wasn't able to function anymore. So I was taking weeks off of work because I wasn't, and this is coming from me. I always used to just to go to work maybe a little too much than I should. So started missing work, and eventually I got in a case. I got a case at work that for drug diversion. So I didn't have the drugs in my system, but I got charged with attempted theft of medication. I didn't take it, but it was attempted theft. So that led for me, that opened up a case with the board of nursing. And with that opening a case with the board of nursing, then eventually ended my employment. I actually had resigned from a management job. I was just working as a regular nurse. And it was just, the alcohol habit became too big to ignore now.
To contain,
It was too big because I had to wake up every morning. I had to have like like I would have
Bottles.
to have
Mm-hmm.
a cup of this of wine
Mm-hmm.
for me to start my day. Because the previous day I had 1.5
Mm.
liters of liquor
Mhm.
before I went to bed. I was 105 pounds.
Wow.
Wow.
And yeah, I went down to 105 pounds. You could tell by just looking at me that I'm sick. You get to a point where people just, when I go around or when I'm in these community places, even when I see people laughing, I can look most of the time and tell that this young person over here is going through something.
Because you've walked.
Because I've experienced it. You can connect it with them. You can tell by the way they're laughing.
Mm-hmm.
And somebody from the outside who's never gone through it, they're like, oh, this is a young, vibrant person.
And if you know Iso, he's a little guy.
I know.
Yes.
So when you go to
so
one
I was
five,
even smaller.
Yeah.
Yes.
So that's what it does to you. So that was no food, not eating.
Because
Well,
you
don't
have
eat.
no appetite.
No appetite.
And then it also, when I ate, I would never get drunk as much as I wanted.
Right.
It would take forever for alcohol to get in my system when I eat.
So your food intake went
I
down.
usually used to drink, then eat.
Right.
People usually eat, then drink. Me, from the get-go, is drinks first, then food later.
So that rock bottom now.
So rock bottom, I lose my job.
Yeah.
And even though my family would tell you, no, he was not homeless, if they didn't take me in, I had lost my apartment. That does bring me.
Yeah. Actually,
if none of them were in town.
Yeah.
Actually, by definition, homeless is not the fact that you don't have a place. Is actually technical when you're sharing a room with someone else. Yeah, that's the definition by law.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, because where I work, we kind of deal with that.
Yeah.
So there's a definition that even me when I read it first, I was like, what? So, but anyways, you lost your apartment, you lost your your family had to take you back in.
Yes, I had to go back, and that was probably the beginning of the humbling process. Because now you start seeing everything, whether you was validated or not validated, you start to see the self-destruction add up. And I would say that happened in July. Well, my license got suspended in July. And I lost my apartment in March of 2015. And when the day that I received the notice from my lawyer that my license for practice had been suspended, I think I froze for about 15, 20 minutes. I didn't move. I couldn't talk. I couldn't hear anything. I couldn't see anything, because anytime you've worked so hard for something, and for me, healthcare was a passion. I actually quit going to where I was accepted to go to a community college so I can do my passion. And you can imagine how that conversation went with an African parent that you've been accepted to a university, but you've decided to go to a community college so you can chase what you wanted to do.
Right.
And so I wanted to do it, and I really, really wanted to do it. And I was now, and then I said, you know what? Since I've lost everything, I was so mad at the world. I said, now I'm just going to drink until this roof falls off. And be very careful what you say in your head, because God will deliver you that.
Man.
Oh, man. So now, let's talk about your support system. So at this point, your family has been your constant support system. So coming back home was a breath of fresh air, at least at that point.
You know what? It wasn't, because at that time, everybody's telling you what you're doing is wrong. You already see them as enemies. You are only liking them because they're housing you.
You take away the house, you're gone.
Yes.
You have no business with them.
Yeah, because you alienate. And the way this thing works is whenever you're going through depression and you don't see and you don't see the world for what it is, you alienate everybody who is of good to you. Because you've already alienated the first and main thing. The connection with God
Yeah.
is not where it's supposed to be.
Mm-hmm.
Once you mess with that connection,
Mm-hmm.
then the way the devil works is he makes sure that you mess with all the other secondary connections.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
So now, how long were you with family? Because I know at some point you mentioned these.
Yes.
So I'm going to come back. You ended up in rehab.
Yes.
How does that journey unfold until you end up there now?
So
Because now you're going to drink yourself to death, like
Yes.
whatever it is. This is the only thing you're going to do. You've
Yes.
lost your license. You've
Mhm.
lost, well, your friends at this point. Did you have friends, by the way?
the only friends I had were very few who stuck by me. They know themselves. the few friends who stuck by me.
But I know you're a very popular guy. You have
Yes.
friends. You
Yes.
have you know you're a people's person.
Yes.
But at this point, you found yourself only you
Mhm.
and a few people left with you.
And a few people left with me, because the one thing that is also is that when you fall from grace,
Mm-hmm.
you'll find that you'll also fall out of other people's graces.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
From grace to grass, man.
Yes. And at that point, I lost a lot of friends
Mm-hmm.
just from the simple fact that I didn't have the same social status that I used to have.
You have no money now.
You have no money now. You only have money for like the dead end liquor, the one where when you drink it, you feel like a train, ran through you the previous night. It's very interesting. And then when you see these whole things fall around you, the evil forces get a tighter grasp on you, and then you are like, the only really thing now that understands me is what I'm using.
Wow.
Because everything else is falling, and everything keeps falling, but you still don't realize, like, this is the problem. It's whatever I'm hanging on to as my saving grace is actually why everything keeps falling.
That's your distraction.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So rehab.
Yeah.
So the way I ended up going to rehab is I sat up one night, the whole night. I couldn't sleep. I asked myself what I haven't. I tried changing, by the way.
So during this time, you're trying.
I'm trying.
You're trying.
I wasn't going out. I wasn't hanging out with anybody. I wasn't smoking weed. I wasn't using any other drug. I was trying to go to church. And that's when I started going to Southview.
Okay, I see how the transition makes.
Yeah, so I started going to Southview. I like the current pastor that they had at that time. I feel like he's speaking to me. And then one day my niece woke me up. I think it was God sent. And I ended up making it to Sabbath school. She was like, "No, we're not leaving without you." I was like, "Okay." So we make it to Sabbath school. And then I remember I'm sitting in there and I'm thinking.
And for the listeners who are not familiar with this, Sabbath school is like a program in church that
Yes.
early in the morning, like kind of a school.
Yes.
where you learn. Okay.
You have to be up early. Yeah. So I make it. Then I was like, man, I like this. I want to be a part of this again. The last time I felt that kind of belonging and connection to a church is when we were in Kenyan Community Church in 2005. This is 2016.
It's 11 years.
There's 11 years. I said I wanted to be a part of this again. So I sat up that night. I didn't get no peace. God decided, I'm not going to give you peace until we put this to an end and you make a decision that this is where you're going to go or this is where you're going to go. I went through all the things I had done and that changed. And then I found, hey, there's one thing that you haven't changed. You're still drinking. I had changed everything. I'd even changed the kind of shoes I wear.
Wow.
Name it, I had done it. I had
Props to you, man. That's
changed.
good.
I
That's
had
good.
changed
Yeah.
everything except the bottle. Then I was like, you know what? Then this is I have to. What do I have to do? I mean, when you don't have anything to lose, and you've lost everything,
Yeah.
you don't have a house. You don't.
Yeah.
I didn't even have a phone at this time. I couldn't afford a phone.
Wow.
I did not have a phone. I did not. I had $5 in my wallet, and that was it. No bank account, no nothing. Everything closed.
My boy.
Wow.
So, and then I was like, I'm changing. And I told him, I want to go to rehab. By that time, my family had cornered me and told me, you have to go. I was like, by the way, that's the decision I also made last night. It's good that we made the same decision.
But that's probably God. Not probably. I think it's God.
There's
spoke
a
to
higher
them
being.
at the
There's a
same
higher
time.
He said I
being.
wasn't going to give you no peace. And anybody who knows me, they know that I can sleep. So if you tell them I just stayed all night
They were like, no,
with no alcohol
there's a problem.
and stayed up,
Yeah.
there's something wrong here.
But I think I want to highlight something. I don't want us to miss this, that you first of all yourself came to that decision
Yeah.
that you want to change.
Mm-hmm.
There are people, even if you corner them and take them to rehab, if they have not come to that decision
It doesn't work.
themselves,
Yeah.
It doesn't
it won't work.
Yeah.
Right? So I think that as listeners are listening out here, I hope this stirs that conversation in your head. If you're going through something like this, you need to have that conversation yourself before
With
anyone
yourself.
else.
Yeah.
Because at the end of the day, there's a saying, an African saying, I'm an African, so I have to throw these sayings in
Yeah.
there, that you can take a cow to the river, but you cannot force it to drink water.
Yes.
Exactly.
So you can take someone to, rehab. You can take someone to go get treatment. You can take someone, but if they're not willing mentally and ready to get there, then there's a problem. So you get there. How long were you in rehab? So that we build on this. So now tell us. So your family corners you. By the way, that's where I am. So next, how do we go from there?
Yeah, so I go to rehab about a week or two later because it took a while. The one that I wanted to go to was a smaller one.
Okay.
I wanted to go to like the one that had a max of 5 people.
Okay.
For some reason, I wanted to go to a small thing, and all of it was really godsend. The other places that opened up, I didn't like them.
Okay.
I didn't like them. I wanted that one. The excuse that I used to my family was like, this is closer to home, and everybody wanted something closer to home so that they can come see me.
Yeah.
But really, it was really God sent that I went there. So I go to rehab. It's 30-day program,
Inpatient.
inpatient 30-day program. And I get there. First thing that I learn. Oh, before I go to rehab, I have my last drink. I
Come on,
remember.
Aizo.
Parting shot.
Oh man.
So I decided to have my last drink. I drank the whole bottle and I did not feel a thing. And I was like, you know what? I think this is time. Because I was like, all I did was just go to the bathroom. I did not feel a thing.
Wow.
I did not feel a thing to even double check that on the 6th March 16, 2016, I said, you know what, I'm gonna have a beer just to double check. I didn't feel nothing. So that's why I always count my sobriety date as of the 8th, because there were 24 hours that ran through there. And I really started on the 8th.
8th of March 2016.
2016, yeah.
Wow.
So
It's 5 years ago now.
Been sober, almost 5 years.
Almost 5
Yeah.
years. So I go, and it was a very good program. Basically, rehab, there's no medication that they give you. That it's like, okay, Ezra, now take this. You will never covet alcohol again, and you are healed. No, rehab is, they give you tools for you to go out back in the real world. Because when I came out, is when, I had already started. In there, I uncovered all the things that I was dealing with. I had to uncover them. I had to be open. And I had to say my personal business. As an African man, saying your personal business is taboo just by itself.
Right.
So talking about your personal business was something that I had to open up and get used to. And, I learned that. And among other things, what you learn is that, there's various levels of substance abuse that even when I was 6 months, it was just a holiday, really. Because I had never made up on a mind that I was never going to drink again. A door that is not closed is still open.
Aizo, let me pause and ask you a question. There's someone who's listening to this. and they're wondering what are some of those tools because they've not gone there. If you can just highlight them in punchline points,
Yep.
bullet points,
Yeah.
Yep.
what would you?
And tell us, we can name the program that
Yeah.
the rehab that the,
Yeah,
that
the
you went
rehab.
to, and then tell us the tools.
Yeah,
that you
the
gave.
place that I went to, and even when people have reached out to me, I have always recommended a small place because then you'll get one-on-one with the counselors more than a place where you're 20 people. It was Paul's place in Farmington.
Okay.
Paul's-
And they have,
Paul's
yes,
place.
that's Paul's place is a guy's,
Mm.
and then they have women's, they call Margaret's place.
Okay. Awesome.
So now the tools that they gave you, it just in a nutshell.
So the tools that they gave me in a nutshell is number one, to always remember that you can always pick it up
Okay.
where you left it. You will deal with cravings going forward. You're not healed. You learn to live with
Cravings.
what you learn to live with cravings. And number two is substances, especially for alcohol. It's not the problem. It's the choices that you make using it, because there are rules, whether you are a Christian or not. There are rules of engaging in partaking in legal substances. But if you follow those rules to the T, it actually, you're supposed to just have one drink a day. There's probably 2% people who would drink alcohol the way it should be out of everybody. I learned to, first of all, to face my fears, not to run away from them. And to always have a person to connect with, or that one, they called it a higher power. For me, I said, I'm not going to beat around the bush. I have to work on my faith, because if you're a Christian, you have a faith. And you'll be shocked that in rehab, they talk to you about connecting to your faith.
Yeah.
I was able to see that when I lost the connection to my faith, my identity crisis got worse. I wanted to fit in somewhere else because I knew who I was before I came here. I came here and tried to fit in different places.
Now, I'm sorry to cut you, but it goes back to where we started part one.
Yeah.
It was that identity crisis as a teenage boy that was never addressed. And here you're going back, it's built up until you've lost everything. And you're finally coming to a place to know your identity and face it. And there's a young person who's struggling with identity crisis out there. There is, a parent who's looking at their child and trying to understand them. Please take time as a parent, as an adult, as a guardian. Talk to your young people.
Yeah.
Don't just assume and yell and tell them do it. Because if that identity crisis is not addressed and it's not dealt with, such are the stories that we're going to hear, and not everybody will come back like Iso comes. Keep going on the tools. I'm sorry, I just wanted to plug that in because I think I felt it was important.
Yep. And then the importance of taking time for self-reflection and honest self-reflection, sober self-reflection, where you look at yourself or you look at a cup and you see it as a cup, and 10 other people can see it as a cup.
Wow.
And honestly grading yourself, but also forgiving yourself. You have to deal with the shame and guilt. Whatever brought you to that river of using has to be dealt with. And the way that addiction thrives is through shame and guilt. You are so ashamed of what you did, you end up feeling so guilty, and then you're either ashamed or guilty. That's why you just keep finding an escape route in using. And had to deal with that. I dealt with that. My biggest thing is forgiving myself. I never forgave myself. I've always been a tough grader on myself ever since I was little. I never, ever forgave myself, really, and I would say probably 2 to 3 years into my sobriety. And I worked on that I started working on it during rehab. Because you have to change your mind. You have to change the way you think. You have to change the way you see the world. you have to change the way you feel the world, because whatever you were seeing, whatever you were feeling, and whatever you were experiencing was not reality. Whether it was trauma or whether it was through identity crisis, what you experienced afterwards was not really what was there, because there is a better world. You know, I deal with my problems now when I'm sober. You know, I've dealt with single parenthood now when I'm sober. I have dealt with bills, and I have dealt with grief. I have dealt with death. I have dealt with everything now that I'm sober.
Man, this is powerful, Kenan.
Yeah. Wow. Yeah.
Keep going. I just want him to keep going. No. I don't want to cut him off, man.
It's one of those things that when you are deep in the dungeon of depression, you don't see how you could face the world, or you could have self-dialogue when you don't have a clear mind, or when you have a clear mind, but you will never get over your trauma. Whatever happened to you, you will never get over it, and you will never forgive yourself. Now, just imagine somebody who was sexually assaulted. Number one, they blame themselves. All right? So they already have that aspect of blaming themselves. And then they've never gotten an apology from the person who did it.
There's no closure.
There's no closure. So now, couple no closure with no forgiveness from self. And the worst grudge you can have on earth, leave alone the grudge about you, me versus you, Kenan. The worst grudge you can have is against yourself. Because now you've even closed God from coming in.
Oh, wow.
So
I think this is where I start speaking in my language.
No.
Because, I'm lost of words. I feel like there's much that needs to be done. I feel like many people are going through that. You and I have grown together in the same community.
Yeah.
We have friends, family, people
Yeah.
that have dealt with that. And they're probably there because they were wronged or something happened. As we start closing these, where are you now?
So now where I am is, I'm about to get my 5 years in a month or so.
Okay.
I stopped counting at some point.
Congratulations.
By the way, congratulations. Big up for
Thank you.
that.
Glory
Congratulations,
to God.
man.
Glory to God. Yeah.
Do you have a sponsor?
I did. I used to have a sponsor.
Okay.
I need to get
Speak a
another
language that I understand.
Oh.
What's a sponsor?
I need.
Yeah.
I lost contact with my sponsor about was it a year and a half ago, because he got older and he stopped coming to AA. So I still went to AA. I really, really do encourage Alcohol Anonymous.
So these are a
Speak to
sponsor
us.
is someone who's gone through the journey of substance abuse, is sober, so he's a focal point for you, like a mentor, and you reach out to him and talk to him if you're struggling, if there's relapse you're going through. So that's something that someone specifically for you during that journey. Alcohol Anonymous, those are AA groups that someone who's has gone through it or is going through it. There's groups where you can go and talk. So there's many. There's Alcoholic Anonymous, Narcotics Anonymous. There's even Sexual Abuse Anonymous. All those. So
there's all of those.
All those are groups.
I'm proud of you, Kenan. I'm glad I'm sitting at this table with you.
And it's one of those things that people, that even if you're still drinking, even if you're still smoking, even if you're still using, even if you're still shooting, whatever you're doing, go to these groups. Because what I found in AA, I didn't. There are things that I found in AA that I didn't find in church, but in turn strengthened my faith. Because I went to AA and people told stories of things that they went through after they stopped using. I was like, I don't think I have a reason to use again.
The withdrawal.
I mean, it's the things that people went through. When people talk to you about going through divorce, losing their kids, they're going through multiple deaths in the family. They talk to you about real life problems and they didn't drink after that. You're like, okay.
my problems.
I think I was having a few late bills and a trash bag. At least I think I have a room in my family. I'm good. I'm good. You know, you say that. I think my problem. When you go and you share with other people who are going through, it minimizes your problems, and then it opens up your world to like, hey, you know what? When you come back, when you quit, oh, by the way, you're still gonna have bills that are due, and yes, people are still going to die, and yes, and if you think you're the only problem, I mean, the person who's facing the challenge of single parenthood as a Christian and how stigmatized that is too, you're like, there's 10,000 other people dealing with it.
I think this is informative, and I hate to say that our time has and is running out. But I feel like there's going to be a session as we start this journey. Maybe what I can pitch and appeal to you, Aizo, is that we're going to have other guests who are going to come on the very similar topic. Maybe we can do a bonus session where we just have them talk and we just have a group and have that conversation, because I think once we hear the stories, we also need to start talking about, we haven't even scratched where you are. You're talking about some really good gems that we want people to go home with, that they can use. So I just want to ask, the hearing of everybody else, that when we have that opportunity, that you grace us so that we can have an open conversation with other gentlemen or ladies. Open mic. Yeah, we can have an open mic where hopefully that can be live on YouTube. So we can put something like that, so that even people who are listening can engage, interact, or something like that, so that we can make it happen. So,
we're thankful. We're thankful.
I'm thankful too.
One-liner. Give us a one-liner as a parting shot as we finish.
Remember that, with everything that you're going through, you're not alone. Even if it might seem that you are alone, I don't know how long you've been going through it, or someone who's been going through it. There is a better world, and there is an answer. There's no one who was born to live in pain and anguish.
For me, I think successfully, breaking from the chain of addiction. I mean, it takes one step at a time. Just listening to you. It takes one step at a time, and you don't have to do it immediately. You can take those steps gradually. Listen to your support system. Talk to someone, and you can do it. And one thing you mentioned is I think we are all. What I've learned is we are all in the stages of change.
Yes.
And we are all at a stage. You might be at the beginning, or you might be at the end.
Yeah.
So you're in a stage of change. So wherever you are, whether you're contemplating quitting, you're contemplating, talking to someone, or you're at the point where you are now, you're at the, tail end of your journey of change. Yeah. We are all at a stage of change. So keep at it, look for some support, and do one day at a time.
Yeah.
Awesome. I want to say this. I don't want to close with my own words. I want to close with the words of Aizo himself, because I think through these series, he has really given me some gems that I think I want to remind you. He said this, and that was the truth minute. Your excuse may seem to be valid at the moment, but in the long run, self-distraction or distracting behavior will invalidate it. Yeah. Whatever you're going through, it might be genuine, and it could be genuine, and it is genuine. But if you engage in that self-destructing behavior, it will invalidate that. But the verse that we read is the favorite for Isaac, and I think that's Isaiah, and that's the one that I want to close out with. He read to us from the book of James, and this is your favorite verse, and you wanted to read it, so I'm just doing the honors for you. Thank you. James 1 verses 2, it says, "My brethren, count it all joy when you fall into various trials." So through his trials, he is counting it now as all joy.
Yes.
Knowing that the testing of your faith produces patience. And I'm sure you've walked the patience journey. You've been patient. 5 years now, you're still counting, right?
Yes.
And it says, but let patience have its perfect work, that you may be perfect and complete, lacking nothing. That is our hope.
Yes.
That may be the truth for you, that you may not lack anything. You may continue walking the journey. And remember, a righteous man falls 7 times If the journey goes down,
Yes.
don't stay there.
No.
Let's go get back. Thank you, guys. That is Amazing Truth Podcast.
All the resources will be laid on the website. Paul's Place is where the treatment center you went to. Paul's Place. It's in Dakota County. All these
Yes.
resources will be at our website.
Yes.
Listen,
Mhm.
share, subscribe.
Yes.
Thank you for listening to this episode of the Amazing Truth Podcast. We hope you were blessed as you listened. Don't forget to share, like, and subscribe. God bless you, and see you on the next one.